Good morning, friends. It's Saturday, and I'm back with Chapter 29 of my upcoming book, Campaign at Fort Stix. Now it's time to grab a snack, dim the lights, and let me take you into the mists of time with a story I call Peace Talks. Arriving in front of the school, I stood to disembark with the others while scanning the area around the bus. I was looking for Wayne and his minions. Having dealt with bullies in the past, I knew yesterday's offenses were unlikely to be forgotten overnight. The coast was clear, so I proceeded to get off the bus and head into school. Since he was smaller, my brother Mark was required to ride at the front of the bus and got off almost as soon as it stopped in front of the school. He was already inside with his class, and I was glad no one realized he was my brother. It would not do for a bully to try to get to me through him. That had happened once in Portage, when another bully went after my brother and his friends when they got off of the school bus. Living in a large trailer park with more than a few hundred homes, there was quite the youth population there. In fact, it took 3 school buses each morning to get us all to school. On a bright spring day, we got off the bus after school, and my brother was walking with a group of his friends when they were cornered between a couple cars by the bully and his minion. With one of them at each end, the younger boys could not get past. When I saw the bully lay hands on my brother, I ran up from behind, tackling the minion and smashing his face into the pavement in a wrestling takedown. The bully was surprised and immediately let go of Mark, but it was too late. I was in a rage and ran forward to hit him. He was at least a foot taller than me, and I had run from him on many occasions. On this day, all the built-up frustration and anxiety was balled up into one tiny fist of rage. I hit him in the nose, splashing blood everywhere, and his head snapped back to impact a steel post he was standing in front of, causing a cut in his scalp. The steel post was holding up the sign for the trailer park and was about 18 inches in diameter. When his head struck, it rang out like a bell. Standing there with clenched fists in front of him with the red clearing from my eyes, I watched him slump to a sitting position on the ground, leaning back against the signpost. Someone from the trailer park office saw it happen and called in for police and paramedics. The police interviewed everyone still around there, and I was cleared of wrongdoing. It seemed the police had been involved with my bully in the past, so they were not surprised. I heard later that he had a concussion and needed a bunch of stitches to close the cut on the back of his head. I saw him occasionally after that until I moved from the trailer park, and he either avoided us or was cordial if we happened to be in the store together. Seems he was a bully to a lot of kids because I found a lot of new friends after that. Standing near the office where I could see the buses pull up, but no one outside could see me, I waited to see. Wayne's bus came in after 2 more, and he exited surrounded by his minions. It seemed like they all lived in the same area. I made a mental note to find out where that was so I could avoid it when out riding my bike. Heading for class, I took my seat and prepared for the day to come. My first book report was already finished, and I put it in the teacher's basket while waiting for class to begin. I was sure to be the first one with a star on the board, as no one else put theirs in by the time the teacher closed the door to begin class. Unlike the previous day, Wayne and his minions were in their seats at the back of the room. The morning progressed with a lesson and practice with penmanship. Like many others, I was not fond of penmanship classes as I had no talent for writing neatly. At least I could say that I had this in common with Wayne and his minions. Instead of practicing writing script, they were enthusiastically engaged in a discreet game of hangman. Unfortunately, I was too far away to join them. We were released for art class in the mid-morning, and I followed the others to the class. I had no idea where the classroom was, and was glad someone else did because I never would have thought to take the stairs down by the cafeteria. The school was built on a small hill, and the art room was in the rear next to a loading dock. Sitting at the table with several others, I looked out the windows only to find my view was limited to a sloped-up driveway and the wall below the cafeteria. To my surprise, Kenny sat next to me in art class. Once the teacher did roll call and announced it would be a free drawing day so she could observe our talents, she sat at her desk reading while we attacked paper with pencils and crayons. I busied myself drawing dragons and snakes. I had recently learned some drawing techniques by trying to sketch the pictures in the TV guide that advertised drawing contests for art scholarships. One of them was a snake head form, and it was easily adapted for dragons and snakes. "That's pretty good," Kenny said. I looked over to see the motorcycle he was drawing and had to agree. It was pretty good. Lots of details. "Yeah, it is. I like the chopper forks and the way the Maltese cross completes the sissy bar," I said. "No, man, you're dragon," Kenny said. "That is cool." "Well, thanks," I said. No one had ever called one of my drawings cool before. "Where did you learn so much about motorcycles?" "My dad builds choppers for his friends," Kenny said. "He lets me hang out at the shop sometimes. That dragon would make a great tattoo." I had never thought about tattoos before this, but had to agree. It could be neat. "Hey, Wayne," Kenny spoke up. "Check out this dragon, man." Wayne got up and walked over to look at my dragon. I braced myself for a cheap shot to the ribs or a thump to the back of the head, but none came. I looked up in time to see Wayne actually smile and grunt his approval. Then, the smile faded to confusion as he looked at me and then back at the dragon. I could almost hear the inner monologue as he tried to sort it out for himself. "Dragon good. Mouthy nerd bad. Dragon good. Nerd bad. No. Nerd good. Bad. Dragon. Bad nerd. Pound. Smash. No, teacher. No smash. Smash later." For a moment, his face went blank, and then he turned suddenly and returned to his seat. I did not know what he was drawing, but he looked at it with disgust and began to fold it into a paper airplane. "Wayne liked your dragon, man," Kenny said. "I don't know, man. He seemed confused," I said. "He gets that way sometimes," Kenny agreed. "You think maybe he needs a Scooby snack or something?" I asked. "Maybe he's just hungry." Kenny laughed at this and reached into his jacket to pull out a little plastic vial. I recognized it as a coin tube for dimes. Inside was a white hand-rolled cigarette, which I instinctively knew to be a marijuana cigarette. Suddenly, everything was beginning to make sense. "Now, what he needs is this," Kenny said. "You know, maybe if you join us after lunch, Wayne might start to like you. Wait, no, better hold off on that. Let me talk to him first. He does not like surprises." "I like that idea better," I agreed. Being alone, out of sight of responsible adults with Wayne and his boys was not something I was going to volunteer for. I was also not interested in smoking grass. Drugs were bad. "So you like Kiss?" Kenny asked, continuing to draw more details on his motorcycle. I looked over at him, trying to comprehend if he had really asked me if I would like to kiss him. I was into girls and had no interest in guys. He kept drawing until the silence became extended and then looked at me. "What do you mean?" I asked, unsure what to say. "The band," he said, smiling. "I saw how you wrote your name in the same style of lettering that Kiss uses on their album covers on your science book, and figure you probably like them." At the time, I had never even heard of a band named Kiss. I had grown up with country music, and my recent forays into polkas and the Beach Boys were it. "Never heard of them," I said. "Really?" He looked incredulous. "Man, you got to start listening to the radio. There's some really great bands out there with some awesome music." "I guess," I said, wondering if I even had a radio. The bell rang and we were released for lunch. As we were walking out of the classroom, Kenny told me I should make sure to eat fast and be quiet at the end of lunch so our table would be released first. He also said I should hang out at the swings where there was always a teacher until he had a chance to talk to Wayne. I followed his advice, and like he said, we were the first table to be released for recess after lunch. I followed along at the rear as we went outside, knowing there would be no others to lose myself in, and eased over to the swings. I watched as Wayne and his minions gathered near a corner of the building, and disappeared as soon as there were more people on the playground to distract the teacher. They slipped into the woods moments later. I used this peaceful recess to gather information about the playground and what happens there. It seems there were only 2 teachers on the playground at a time. One always near the door, and the other near the swings. Neither of them ever looked towards the woods behind the cafeteria, and there were no windows looking out of that wing of the building since the cafeteria was also the gym. Near the end of recess, I saw Kenny walking at the edge of the playground, staring at the ground. He seemed fascinated with something there, and I wondered if he was following an interesting bug or something. I was about to give up my swing and go see when I saw Wayne walking toward him from the opposite direction. That is when I realized what was going on. They had come back from the woods one at a time in order to keep from attracting attention. Within moments, they were all grouped up near the half-buried tires. They did not even look my way, and the rest of the day remained peaceful. I was not invited to join the group that week, but I also was not chased relentlessly. In fact, other than Kenny talking with me a couple odd times while waiting for the others to come out of the woods, I was pretty much ignored. I ended the week with 4 stars on the reading board and went home Friday afternoon looking forward to hanging out in my fort over the weekend. Dad and Aunt Jo were already sitting in the hallway by the potbelly stove drinking beer when I got in from school. As Mark and I came in through the back door, Mom hollered at us to change out of our school clothes and get our chores done because dinner would be ready soon. I changed and went out to feed the birds. They were happy to see me, and I was pleased to see they still had food left from when I fed them that morning. I took some time to go in and huddle with the ducks when I fed them. They were getting much bigger now and almost reached the top of my pants with their heads. They were soft as ever, and I watched as they played in the pool. Mom called out the back door that it was dinner time, and I went in to join everyone at the table. As Aunt Jo sat with us, it occurred to me that Sarah was not there. "Hey, Aunt Jo, where is Sarah?" I asked. "She's at home with your Uncle Jim. She was not home from school yet when I helped your daddy deliver the car," she smiled. "She'll be there when we get there." I continued to eat my dinner and wonder what was happening. Aunt Jo said when we get there. Did she mean her and Dad when he took her home, or what? As soon as dinner was done, Dad went in and put out the fire in the potbelly stove. I thought this was odd, since it had been getting pretty cool at night, but figured he knew what he was doing. Then Mom told us to pile in the truck. Mark and I sat on either side of the car seat in the back while Mom, Dad, and Aunt Jo piled into the front seat of the truck, and we headed out. It was just starting to get dark when we got to Aunt Jo's trailer in Portage, and Dad pulled his truck up behind Uncle Jim's Kenworth semi. They did not hang around long after getting us settled in. Mom put my little sister to bed in Aunt Jo's room and told us to not make too much noise so she would sleep until they returned, and they were gone. Apparently, they were going to see some band at a bar they had been looking forward to. Sarah put her sister to bed with my sister and then appeared a while later with a pack of cigarettes. She turned on the stereo and adjusted it so we could hear, but it would not wake up the babies, and then sat at the table and lit a cigarette. Mark came from somewhere in the back of the trailer with a deck of cards, and we sat at the table playing cards, listening to music, and smoking. We were not worried about our parents finding out we were smoking. The ashtray was already full when they left, and Uncle Jim had been smoking like a chimney while waiting to go. We were having a good time until I started to feel hot and a bit nauseous. I was not sure why it was happening, but soon learned it was from mild nicotine overdose. I had always smoked a bit with my friends here at the trailer court, but at the farm, rarely if ever. Tonight, I had whole cigarettes to myself, and I was not used to it. It was showing. I curled up on the couch waiting for the symptoms to pass while Sarah and Mark went to the back of the trailer to do stuff. Lying there on the couch, the music found its way into my brain and I started to really listen. Sarah had set the radio to a popular rock station in Chicago and they were playing music non-stop all Friday night. I was introduced to several new bands that night, including Kiss, and yes, I did like them. It was the beginning of a new thing for me. When I started feeling better, I went back to find Sarah and Mark. They were playing games and I joined them until we all finally tired out and sprawled around the living room to sleep. I was still awake when our parents came in sometime after midnight and found me listening to the radio. I was fascinated by the music I was hearing. It was quite warm when we arrived at Aunt Joe's, but when I left there with my parents after midnight, there were flurries of snow on the ground and it was still snowing. By the time we got home, there was a light dusting of snow on the ground, but the air was still warm and it was not sticking to the trees. I fell asleep watching the snow that night and slept a bit later in the morning than I usually do. I was outside feeding the chickens and ducks when Grandpa came walking up the hill. He told me I should pick any vegetables that were ready because we would be having a frost in the next couple of days that would kill all the plants and ruin any food left on the plants. I looked at my garden. I had put a lot of hard work into it and was saddened to know that it was done for the season. I did as Grandpa instructed and picked all of the good vegetables that were ready to eat. When I took them into the house, Mom helped me to wash and process them as needed, and they were stored away for use later. When we were done, I went into my room and dug through my stuff. I remembered Grandma had given me a little transistor radio with an earpiece in the last couple years. I found it in a box of my junk, and after finding a 9-volt battery for it, was pleased to be able to listen to the radio. I spent the rest of the weekend either in the fort or in my room listening to the Chicago rock station while I kept myself occupied doing other things. To my surprise, the sun was shining Monday morning and it was warm once again. It was as if winter had poked its head in the door to give us a 5-minute warning and now was gone again. The teacher commented on this and said it was Indian summer, so named for the Indians' practice of hunting and gathering winter stores at this time. In art class, I could barely contain myself as Kenny and I talked about all the music I listened to over the weekend. It was like a whole new world opened up for me and I was fully immersing myself in it. Wayne and the others even joined in the conversation, and for a little while, it was almost like we were friends. Some things are not meant to be, and life somehow has a way of restoring the order it intends. The good feelings continued on through lunchtime and on out to the playground at recess. When Wayne and the others slipped off to the woods, I found my way to the tetherball pole. Waiting my turn, I finally got to face the previous winner. While I'm not the best athlete, hitting a ball on a string is pretty easy, and I'm always competitive when engaged in contests. I easily won the first couple matches and was surprised when Kenny stepped up to challenge me. I beat him, and then another of Wayne's minions before Wayne himself stepped up. He grinned evilly as I hit the ball his way and batted it back without even having to reach out. Along with his height, Wayne also possessed long arms. For several minutes we battled back and forth before I figured out that I could sometimes make him miss by hitting the ball upward. Back and forth we batted the ball until I missed, and he was able to get a couple good raps on the pole. Now the ball followed the previous raps and circled high on the pole, making me have to jump for each hit while Wayne simply reached up and helped it along. It was looking as though I was going to lose, and looking back, it would have been better if I had. But my competitive nature would not allow giving up, and I reached deep inside to not only jump and hit the ball, but put all of my strength into it. It felt for a moment as if the ball wrapped around my hand, and then it was flying back toward Wayne at lightning speed. It passed his hand, and he missed when it came around again. Well, he missed with his hand, The ball slammed into the side of his head, turning his face toward where it went, and continued on around to wind quickly around the pole. I had won. As the ball bounced from the end of the string to fall back the way it came, I stared unbelieving. I looked over at Wayne and saw his face was red, but not just where the ball hit him. His whole face and neck were red, and he looked like he was about to bust a vein. He growled loudly, and I darted away as he lurched toward me. It was not until I was standing near the teacher at the door catching my breath that I noticed everyone at the tetherball pole was laughing, except for Wayne, who stood staring at me halfway to where I waited for the bell. I had not done it on purpose, and regretted it immediately because I knew the peace talks had been for nothing, and the reprieve from violence was at an end. I hope you enjoyed this look into the campaign at Fort Stix. That's all for now, but I'll be back again next week with another story, just for you. Until then, sleep well.